Hi, everyone. My name is Charles Varghese, and I'm a marketing specialist here at Study in the USA. We're so glad you could join us for the topic, Planning for International Study, 7 Steps to Success. For those of you who are just joining us, I wanted to once again introduce myself. I'm Charles, and I'll be moderating today's session. We'll just take a few moments before we begin so that more people can join us, but while we wait, we'd love to know in the comments, what part of the studying abroad process would you like advice on? So, as you might know, this is our first session of 2023, continuing your favorite study abroad series, My Dream, My Destination, alongside our partner, TOEFL. You can check out last year's episodes by visiting the live video section of Study in the USA or TOEFL on Facebook. Today's session is made for you, our international students. Whether you're just starting to plan your study abroad journey or you're nearing acceptance to your dream school, this session will detail every step of the process from research to college acceptance. So break out a pen and paper because we're giving you an in-depth guide to help you study in the USA straight from an assistant director of international admissions and recruitment at the University of Northern Iowa. Before we get into that, though, I'd like to mention that Study in the USA will provide one special winner with a $50 Visa gift card. To qualify, go ahead and tag your friends in the comment section below, and we'll get to announcing a winner shortly in the comments after the section. Stay tuned for our Q&A at the end of the session and place any questions you'd like answered in the chat, and either our guest or one of the TOEFL moderators overseeing the chat will answer them shortly. So with that being said, Miley, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here today to tell you about the steps to studying abroad since I know it can be a little confusing. Just a little bit about me. So, I'm Myle Duong. I am the Assistant Director of International Recruitment here at the University of Northern Iowa, which you're also going to hear me say UNI for short, since it is kind of a mouthful. So, I was born in the United States, born in Iowa, actually, and I attended UNI as a global marketing major. So, here I am now, a few years later, globally marketing my previous school to you all, but also telling you about kind of how this process can work for you. Um, I just kind of found out that this is a pretty rewarding career, and I took the necessary steps to do what I enjoy. This school has helped me get to the point where I wanted to be in my career, so I'm really happy to talk about that with all of you today.
We're so glad to have you today, Miley. And before we get into the main part of our session, I hear you're a bit of a world traveler.
Yeah, I have been to quite a few places in the last year since I've been here since 2022. And it's been really great to just meet people and their families in person in their home countries, just to tell them more about the amazing opportunities here in the United States. And it's really given me a lot of rewarding experience being able to travel and also talk to students digitally through formats like this.
I love that. How do you think your experiences abroad have helped open your eyes to the challenges that international students face? And maybe how has that influenced your work as an assistant director of international admissions and recruitment?
Yeah, I think it's just been really great way for me to put my, be in the shoes of the students that I'm working with, just to give me a better idea, of all the different challenges that students are working through, just to try to find a fantastic education here in the U.S. So I applaud our students that are tuning in today, watching, but also that are going to put in the effort to come and study, hopefully at UNI, but anywhere here in the United States. Just that in itself is a success already, since there's a lot of different barriers and challenges. So I'm just hoping that the session today makes it a little bit easier to get started.
Thank you for sharing that. Now we will be getting into what we're really here for, which there's a lot for international students to consider when preparing to study abroad. So we'll break this down into a few sections: research, preparation, and acceptance. And along the way, we'll uncover the 7 steps throughout the entire process. So with that being said, let's talk about the first step we'd recommend taking: researching destinations. I think this is something you can attest to, Miley, but something we've heard from a lot of international students is that when they first start researching study abroad destinations, they're surprised by how big the US really is. You'll hear them bring up the big 4 states: New York, California, Texas, and Florida, but that's just a fraction of all the options available. What advice do you have when it comes to researching potential study abroad destinations?
That's a great question. And yes, the United States is pretty big. There's actually over 4,000 different institutions here in the US that you can choose from. And I think that the destination really helps narrow that down. But ultimately, there's kind of four things to consider. So the first one I would say is think about, what you enjoy. What is your lifestyle like at home? And you can use this as a basis to help narrow down your options. If so, for example, if you like biking, if you like nature, then maybe you're going to want to find a campus that has easy access to those types of things, or maybe you like more of a busier city lifestyle because that's what you're used to, and so then that will also help, choose a campus that maybe replicates that. Also considering the nature and the weather. So because the US is so vast, we have lots of different regions that experience different weather, so it's not going to be the same across the east, the west, the midwest. And like here in Iowa, for example, so we're located in the Midwest, we experience all four seasons. And so if you are the kind of person that has watched movies and you see snowfall during Christmas time and that's like something you want to experience for the first time, then maybe look at a school or a place that has access to all four seasons. And there's also places in the US where they only experience maybe warmer weather and things like that. And that also ties in with the cost of living. So that's like another thing to consider when it comes to the destination. It's also, I would say, something it's a really big deal, but it's also under researched as well. And I'll talk about this later, but the cost of living, especially for someone who's a little bit more budget friendly looking at their finances, this is going to be huge because the dollar that you possibly earn as an international student could go a little bit longer in certain parts of the United States. So when you're looking at the destination and the cost of living, I would strongly recommend also putting that in your pocket to research. And then the last thing is obviously you're wanting to study in the US and you're wanting to improve yourself, have access to career opportunities. So what does like maybe the job market look like around the city that you're exploring? So if you're having a list of maybe 5 to 10 schools, that's another thing to look at is like, are there internships that you can obtain? What does the school do to help you with getting connected to companies in the area? Are there a lot of companies that are, similar to what you're looking for? Like if you're wanting to do agriculture, maybe making sure that there's companies around you that are maybe a little more agriculturally focused. So those are just a few of the ways to consider destination for that first step of research.
Yeah, there's really so many things in the US for just about anyone, and a little due diligence can go a long way. So we found that researching degree programs is a great second step in the process. When it comes to selecting a degree program, what are the top criteria that students should consider?
Ultimately, this is a great question too. You're spending maybe roughly 4 years um, towards this degree, and you're gonna just want to make sure you're selecting something that you're interested in and that you're wanting to learn more about. So, breaking this down as well, what is something that you enjoy now, and is there a major that kind of aligns with that? So. Just for me, as an example, when I was a student here at UNI, I knew I enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed learning about other cultures. And so I was able to make my way into global marketing, and I found that to be a really good fit for me. So it can be as simple as that. And then the second thing is like, what is the return on investment going to look like? That might be something that your parents are really wanting to make sure that you're picking a school that's going to ultimately be a good return on investment. So just looking at what your family's financial affordability is versus the school's cost, and then obviously the career that you're wanting to go to, all of that is an equation that I'm sure you're going to have to calculate. Um, what does the industry landscape look like? That's something I think, especially now, you're going to definitely want to consider when when you're thinking about the job that you want in like 4 to 5 years. So, as you know, things are changing really quickly, and the skills are definitely going to be what the employers are looking for. So, you want to make sure that you're finding a school that gives you the opportunities inside and maybe even outside the classroom that's going to really help you grow those skills. And then the last thing about thinking about what you want to consider for your degree program is researching obviously the different websites. So there's a lot of information on the internet, which maybe might be a little too much information, but just a couple ideas or places to help you get a better idea of what to study is like looking at the school's website, researching what the majors are there and what they offer, what the courses are like. I also think social media is a really great platform to figure out what degrees are a good fit for you. If a school is coming to you in person, talk to the reps. I think that's going to be a great way to learn about a specific major, and they can also get you connected to, um, maybe the department or the faculty or something like that. So just take advantage of the resources and what's available in person and online when researching degree programs.
Yeah, I loved how you touched on early on there that you should do something that aligns with your personal interests. Like, even speaking from personal experience, like when I first started college, I pursued physical therapy because I thought that'd be something I'm interested in, but it didn't really like light that fire in me. And so, I mean, moving on to marketing and now being able to do something that I love, which is writing, I feel like that's been such a better match. And so, I mean, some people might have their answer at the very start, and some people they'll just learn along the way. So, um, yeah, it's never too late to choose a major or change your major. So looking back on what we just went over, I'd like to ask you, the audience, have you researched potential destinations already? And if you have, where do you want to study and why? So as you type your answers in the comment section, I just want to remind you that we will be having a Q&A at the end of the session. So feel free to put whatever questions you might have in the chat, and we'll get to answering those shortly. Now that you've narrowed your options down based on steps 1 and 2, destination and degree, your list should look a lot more manageable. Third on your list, researching schools. So Miley, what separates a good school from the right school?
I mean, it's definitely which school matches what you're looking for in terms of requirements to apply, the programs they offer, the support, and the access to opportunities. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's over 4,000 schools in the US. Each one has traits that make them good. And the right school for you is going to just check most of or all ideally of the boxes when it comes to like affordability, academics, location, opportunity, size, things like that. I think the best fit school for you is going to have the programs that you're interested in. So, like if you're looking at maybe a couple different majors, does the school offer both of those majors? I mean, that's already one way to help narrow down. So, if you're looking, let's say, to be a video game designer and to get there, maybe you want a computer science and a graphic design degree, but the schools that you're looking at, they only have one or the other. It'll help maybe if you choose a school that has both. So that's one way to help kind of narrow that down to find a school that's a good fit for you. But also, I want to talk about the student support, and what does the effort look like from a school that you're looking to go to. So I think support is huge. Personally, like this is the first time that you are maybe the first time that you are pursuing an education abroad. So you're gonna maybe keep in mind like how much guidance are you receiving, and also like reading everything too that the schools are sharing with you. So what does that support look like during the actual application process? And then obviously like while you're a student, I would hope that the school that you're looking for has different things that are available to you so that you feel right at home, so that you feel like your mental health is supported and all of those types of things. So yeah, that's just requirements, programs, student support. It's a mix of all those things. And once you find the school that's a good fit for you, I think you'll just know. That's just based on like your application process.
Yeah, but at least from what I've heard of you and I, they really go that extra step in being intentional. So I think that's what separates a good school from a great school, making you and I one of those great schools. So we're going to chat about the fourth step in the process now, which is researching English language proficiency tests such as the TOEFL IBT test. We can't talk about admissions without expanding on admission requirements regarding English language tests. So as an assistant director of International Admissions and Recruitment at the University of Northern Iowa, what can you tell us about the requirements at your school and how they might differ from one school to the next?
Yes, this is a really important one. So I'm hoping that everyone's listening right now. But I would first recommend starting the process by visiting the school's website. So, for example, UNI has a specific international admissions page. Anyone that's interested in UNI and kind of looking at it now, go find the page. We'll drop it in the comments as well. But you're going to want to find that international specific admissions page to learn about the fact that we require educational transcripts, so your high school transcripts, English proficiency, all the things that we accept for that. And as far as other schools, because every school is different, some schools may also want your personal statement, or they might have specific prerequisite courses or a higher score for certain things. And some of you may have heard that SAT is a requirement, and I'm here to tell you that it's becoming more and more optional in the United States. So just look at the websites. I would say here at UNI, we do try to make things fairly simple for students. It takes less than 15 minutes to apply, and we just look for your academic transcript as well as your English proficiency, such as TOEFL.
So knowing that TOEFL is the world's premier English language test, can you touch on why you often recommend students to consider TOEFL as their option for their English language test?
Yeah, I think that TOEFL just has a lot of pieces to it that make it, accessible. Like you can take it at home or at a center, but it's also versatile. So, like for example, TOEFL at UNI is one of the few requirements that we'll accept for undergrad and graduate admissions for the English proficiency. So, I think that like widespread acceptance is a huge benefit for students. And then also like the flexibility with options. Like you can choose the TOEFL exam that kind of best fits the type of program you're applying for. So if you're thinking of a more academic type of institution, or if you're looking more for like a language learning program, there's a little bit of flexibility with those options. And then also, if you are trying to figure out like which schools accept TOEFL, they have like this destination search option on their website. So it basically lists all of the universities that accept TOEFL scores, and you'll find that UNI is on that list too.
Yeah, accessibility is definitely one of the biggest factors. And knowing that TOEFL is accepted by just about everybody, I mean, that's such a relief to know that. So that brings us to our next category, which is preparation. Your research should clear up what it is that you need to prepare specifically, but there are a few key requirements that should be noted regardless of where you apply to. The first of these is one we just mentioned, which is preparing for your English language test, more specifically TOEFL. And so our fifth step will cover how to prepare for your TOEFL test. We highly recommend students give themselves enough time to prepare for the test, as the test will highlight four key areas: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Miley, what are some tools and resources that you'd recommend that could help students prepare for the TOEFL test?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think that you should definitely, if you are interested in taking the TOEFL exam, go to their website. They have test prep materials and resources, as well as like free practice tests that you can take. So I think that's super helpful to just to make you feel more confident in the TOEFL test. And then just some other like general things I would recommend as you're preparing to take the actual test is just resting to the day before, eat a good meal, reading all of the requirements of things that you can or can't bring to the exam. And then like Charles said, there's like the different parts. So knowing that it does break up between like reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And then just other preparatory things to help you is just making sure you're scheduling that test early so that you're meeting your admission deadlines. Coming from someone who reviews applications, I think it is so much more streamlined for students when they're like, yes, I want to apply to UNI, and these are the things that they require, and you're able to just send it all in at one time. And it's okay too, like if you apply and then you provide the English at a later time because you scheduled it a little later, because we're a little bit more flexible on those things. But for some schools, it may be more beneficial for you to have the exam already completed before the admission stuff starts going. And just that time of year when you're applying for schools, like you're going to want to make sure you are prepared, because not having your English exam ready to go may delay your admission, and that may delay the immigration process or like scholarship. So I'd recommend scheduling your test early so that you're meeting kind of all the deadlines that are at play.
That's such great advice. So this next question is for you, the viewers. What step of the application process do you currently find yourself in? So as you type your answers in the comments section, I just want to remind you that we will be having a Q&A at the end of the session. So feel free to put whatever questions you might have in the chat, and we'll get to answering those shortly. Now, the bulk of the preparation stage has to do with our sixth step, which is preparing your application. The application process is fluid, to say the least. I mean, it might look a little different depending on the school, the time of year, the state of global policy, and a number of other factors. But focusing on the here and now, though, Miley, what does the University of Northern Iowa's current application process look like, and what items do you require students to submit?
Yes, I love this question. Obviously, I'm here to talk about also the UNI application process. So, at the undergraduate level, we are looking for your academic transcripts, put them all together, send it to us, make sure that they're translated into English. And so, we will evaluate them um, for the grade point average. And here at UNI, we're looking for at least a 2.5 out of 4.0 scale for the grade point average. And like I said, our admissions team will review all of the equivalency, so you don't have to do that. Secondly, we're gonna need that test for English proficiency. So for TOEFL, we have a minimum score requirement of 79 on the internet based. And then we also have the 8.0 requirement for TOEFL Essentials in Home Edition. So there's a couple different things. Our website also lists the TOEFL requirements for the English um, fulfillment. I will say like we have mentioned before, other application processes look different for other schools. So they may have deadlines already in place, but we actually have rolling admissions for undergrad. So we are still accepting applications for fall 23 intake, which will start in August. But I would definitely recommend sooner rather than later. So after this, if you are interested in UNI, go ahead and submit those applications.
You kind of touched on it a little bit there already, but how do you help students deal with the fluidity of applications where one school's application process might look a little different than another?
Yeah, and that's definitely, one of the challenging parts of this whole process, right? And I would say, like, if you have a list of schools that you're interested in applying for, something I personally would recommend is keeping it organized through like maybe a spreadsheet. So listing out all of the factors first that are important to you. So take into account, steps 1 through 6 that we've talked about. List out all the factors that are important to you, and then how each school measures up to that. But then also like researching on their websites and then inputting in your list what each school requires, what their deadlines are, and like putting even little notes about your interactions with them. So that's going to be a really good way to help organize it. And obviously, narrowing down your options from 4,000 to maybe 10 is going to be the most manageable way to do it all.
I love that. So ready to move on to the seventh and final step, which is acceptance and final plans. You've finally been accepted to your dream school, your paperwork's been submitted, and you're waiting for your big move. Now what?
Yeah. First step, please read your emails. I think there's so much information. It's maybe information overload, but at this point, you're accepted. And if you know the school you're going to go to, make sure you're focusing all of your energy and really preparing yourself for success when it comes to arrival. Every school has slightly different processes, but you can always reach out to the international admissions teams to ask, what are the things I need to do next so that you're staying on top of it. But as you get those responses, make sure you are really digesting what people are saying and taking action on that. So, some schools, once you're actually arriving, they tell you what dates to show up, what airports to fly into, and they provide those accommodations for pickup and things like that. So, UNI is one of those schools where we tell you what dates to show up, and if you show up within that time frame, we will absolutely help with picking you up from the airport and taking you to your on-campus housing. But you have to make sure you are conscious and just making sure you're conscious of like the dates. And additionally, I would say just look on the website. Please be patient. We have lots of applications that we are reviewing, and I'm speaking kind of generally for all institutions here in the US, but don't forget that we are possibly in a different time zone than you. So, here in the United States, our business days are Monday through Friday. So, Saturday, Sundays, usually you might get no response because those are our weekends. And then don't forget the time difference. So maybe your email you sent at 8 a.m. your time, but that was like 8 p.m. our time. And so we were still sleeping by the end of your day. So just observing all those different things. And obviously once you are here in the US and you're a student, you're going to pick up on that as well. But it's hard to know when you're still abroad.
Yeah. I really love how above and beyond you and I goes for students. I mean, makes me kind of jealous that I didn't end up going there. But Miley, thank you so much for covering our 7 steps to success when it comes to planning for study abroad. Let's recap them here, and on screen, we'll pull up a slide listing them for our viewers. So first, students should research destinations. Second, you'll want to review degree programs. Third, be sure to take a good look at schools and their requirements. Fourth, It's time to research English language proficiency tests like TOEFL. Fifth, you'll want to begin preparing for your TOEFL test. Sixth, prepare your application. And finally, number 7, it's time for acceptance to your school and making your final plans. So, Miley, now that we've covered all our steps, we'd love to hear from you on any final pieces of advice you have for prospective students on their journey to study abroad.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for staying with us all the way till the end here. So, I do have a couple of things I think would be helpful as far as advice goes. So, one, researching your options and your major and knowing that you can always change it. So, make sure you're picking something that you enjoy. And if it's okay if you end up at the university that you love and you're like, this isn't really working for me. Yes, you can change your major. It's actually very common here in the US. So don't feel like you have to stay stuck in something you chose when maybe you were like 17 years old and you still had no idea what the landscape was like. Secondly, pick a school that's a good fit for you, that's going to make you feel supported and help you throughout the entire 4 years. So you can kind of tell that just from researching the internet obviously, but like the social media pages just to see what it's like, especially if you've never been able to go to the US in advance or even see the campus. There's so many amazing resources online when it comes to virtual maps and social media and all of that. And lastly, please do not stress so much about it. I know it's hard for me to just say it, but you will end up where you need to go. Don't worry about that, and just know that you can always rely on the international admissions teams with your questions. They'd be more than happy to help answer them for you because we know that it's definitely not a easy process to get there. But follow the 7 steps that we've talked about here today. Talk to the people that are going to support you, and you're going to be totally fine.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Miley. At this time, we'll transition into our Q&A portion of the session. So we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. Also, I'd like to once again thank Miley for joining us today and the TOEFL team for making sessions like this possible. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into some of our audience questions. The first of them is, what is the biggest thing you think students should really focus on as they prepare to study abroad?
Ooh, whoever asked that, great question. I think you should really focus on, I guess, in the application stage, making sure that you are on track with all of the requirements that are needed from the schools that you're applying for. So don't always just assume. If you haven't heard back in a while, maybe like 2 weeks or so, you can check in and ask, but you want to make sure you're staying on track just because there's some time sensitive things, especially when it comes to visa processing. So you want to make sure you're not falling behind on those.
Yeah, so the second question we have here is, if my minimum requirements don't fit a degree, can I start with a certificate, then proceed to the degree after I get the certificate?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that would probably be a little bit more school specific, just because I can't talk on behalf of all schools in the United States. So I would recommend maybe sending an email to the school that you're looking for, and they're going to have to kind of just look at your situation personally to identify what the right track would be for you to attend their school.
Okay, well, looking at it here, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions. So unless anything rolls in at the last second, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for your thoughtful questions and for tuning into today's session, Planning for International Studies, 7 Steps to Success. Stay tuned for the winner of the Study in the USA $50 Visa gift card in the comments, and be sure to follow TOEFL and Study in the USA on social for even more resources for your journey towards studying in the US. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks. See ya.